What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets-Haber for True DFS. Coming off a really nice night. It's nice to it's nice to win. It's nice to win a lot of money, but it's really nice to win first place. I've had a lot of good results this last period of time, and actually it's been a while, not this last month, but this year. I've had a lot of good results, a lot of seconds, a lot of thirds, a lot of fourths, huge pay jumps differences. And it's nice to win a tournament, and especially with one entry and a 333, and you won the single entry on FanDuel. And it's kind of beautiful because we talked about what we were doing. We did different things, but it's interesting. And I thought we'd start off talking about Sheets' lineup and then mine.
So first of all, I'd like to say, I mean, again, this is a struggle for me, okay? Because, and I go back to this when I used to back people in poker and with poker and stuff like that. I'm really not for bragging. I'm really not for posting screenshots or whatever it is. Yet now that we're doing content, I feel like we probably should, whatever. But I like to do it just to show how that the process actually works, right? So that's one. So I am going to suck it up and do that. But with respect to like what to post, like I had this kind of like threshold in poker when people played MTTs in poker,
yeah.
That unless the person casts for over 10K, I don't want to hear it. Right. Except if they actually won a tournament outright. Like if you win a tournament outright, I don't care what you cash for. I mean, like that's like a really, really big deal. So that was like my threshold in MTTs and poker is that 10K minimum or a W. And I think I think that's a nice threshold for me. I mean, I was okay posting the second from the other day. First of all, because it was a tough tournament. Second in the monster is always good.
Yeah.
And that was 10K, so I figured I would have to post that. And today it was a single entry, and it was the biggest single entry on the board, So I can regard that as a tough tournament. So I'll post that one, and I'll put up my screen. Bobby was hey, like you said, it's one thing to win the 330, the tournament, which is like the biggest buy-in online, right? And it's also quite another to win it with one entry, and it's not being a single entry tournament, Right. So he's competing against you're competing against some tough customers.
When you got 20 of Osimo and Cows chasing you down with a million different formulas, you're feeling
right.
What was interesting is about this one was
you were home free.
I almost until Will Smith hit a home run in the freaking seventh.
Yeah, but you needed them to cut all the way around to find him again.
And he was on deck with a 3 and 2 count to Turner though, and he would have a double would have done it for him. So it was nerve-wracking a little bit, Let
me pull up mine first.
And we had Pujols also. If Pujols would have hit 2 more home runs, but that would have been a lot to ask for 3 home runs from Pujols.
We'll talk about mine, then we'll talk about yours. So mine was as usual Mine was a huge sweat, right? So I took this score into the late Dodger game with no Dodgers, no Arizonas, no nobodies, and I had the entire civilized world tracking me down. And I literally, because I didn't have the best pitcher, right? But I faded everybody. Like every time bets came up, I was seeing, okay, can I give up a single? Yeah, I can give up a single. But then, when Betts got to third, I'm like, ooh, I think I can have him score as long as it's not a double by Muncy or something like that. And then I was with you, man. If Turner did anything, I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be a problem. But the good thing is with me, I needed, when the game was tied at 2, I was like, okay, so I got to somehow get this game to end, right? But not end because someone who I'm anti-sweating gets there. It's really tough, right?
Right.
And the Will Smith home run actually for my tournament was literally the only way the Dodgers could score that I still was in first place.
Right.
So that actually worked out perfectly for me. Yeah. And then when the Will Smith, he got there for you, and we'll look at your lobby in a minute, is that Will Smith got there just within a couple of points or whatever, even 1 point of Bobby. But for Bobby to lose, it would have had to have reversed the whole lineup around, the whole thing. So I had to fight off Peralta in the 9th. I had to have Jansen get to mow all those people down too. So yep. It was a fun sweat for me, and I hung on and I got there.
Yeah, it was. That's awesome. It's a good lineup. Just looking what you did.
Well, we talked about this when I went in there. I said, listen, my main stack on FanDuel's Miami, and there you go.
Right. No, and it worked out perfectly, and it was again, I came a little bit off the full Miami stack, which oddly enough actually helped me in my lineup, and I'll explain in a minute. And I also want to say that, of course, to win these tournaments, I totally agree with your threshold thing, by the way. But I think it's different for every person. Like I would say for anybody out there, if you win $500 and you've got $10 invested, anytime it's 10x if you're low buy-in.
Okay.
That's what I would say. And then anytime it's for how much I play, it would be 10K.
Okay.
It's honestly for you because you don't play the same stakes quite. I mean,
Right.
you have lineups in them sometimes, but most of the days I have more of them than you do.
Yeah.
So I think 5K would be the thing I would use. But anyway, overall, I agree.
But the thing is, like, you can't really cash for 5K. It's weird. Like it's hard to cash for 5K.
If you can't, well, also the cashes for 5K are mostly going to be a brutal, like 6th place on FanDuel where first place is 100K. You know what I mean?
I guess so. Yeah. Then you wouldn't be posting. Then you'd be like killing yourself. Yeah, I got you.
I want to tell a quick story. The first day that I started playing for State Kings, and they do a special thing for you, and they sell that even whatever markup, but they put it out to everybody, sort of to get you introduced and all that. So I sold off a good percentage of myself, and literally the first day, the tournament's running, and it's me. I'm in 3rd place, and I think if I had 27 innings remaining, and nobody else in the top like 50 had more than like 3.
That's awesome.
And I was ready to run away with it, and literally just outs after outs after outs after outs. Finally, in the 9th inning, I have coming up with the bases loaded and nobody out. It's 150K for first for this tournament.
Oh my God.
So this was a big tournament. I have JD Martinez comes up with the bases loaded, nobody out.
I think I remember this.
And I need 4 fantasy points. A walk scores a run, a fly ball, a sac fly, anything. I've also got Bogarts on deck and Devers after him. So all I need is a combined 4 out of these guys with the bases loaded, nobody out. They're down by 4 in the 9th inning, or down by 3 in the 9th inning. And JD Martinez on a 3-0 pitch hits into a double play. Oh. And back to the pitcher, worst of all. So not worst of all, I guess it doesn't really matter, but back to the pitcher double play. And the next thing, and Bogart strikes out, and I 150K that looked guaranteed ends up turning into like 10K, which is, again, it was tied for 10K too. It was tied with a bunch of other people, different lineups, but tied with the same thing. But last night, so if you stop your screen share, I'll pull mine up.
Do I have to stop?
No, I can do it. But last night was the reversal.
Yep.
Okay? So I got my JD. It's 1st and 2nd, nobody out they're down 7-5, and Kiki Hernandez strikes out looking, and I'm going, okay, this is not feeling great. And then Alex Verdugo grounds out after 2. I don't remember actually what happened. I think he just grounded out, or maybe he struck out. I can't remember. But then I had Bogarts and Martinez coming up, and JD hits the big 2-run home run that I needed, and then Bogarts singles and steals not 1 but 2 bases.
Yeah. Nice.
That was beautiful.
Nice.
And it literally, look, that's running good, obviously, at the end of a tournament. But the rest of the lineup, I mean, so many times throughout the night, I was going, God damn, these guys like that, because they were in spots every night to drive in runs. They had plenty of chances to get there for me, and they were my only sort of non-things. But look at the structure of my lineup was exactly what I was talking about last night. The closest stack you could say I had was Boston with a 3-man, okay? But it's a 3-2. It's a 3-2. 3-2 with Miami, and then a 1-1-1 where I'm using 2 1-offs against my pitchers. And I use Herrera, saying that you can use it if you're going to use somebody against your pitcher. You generally want it to be a guy who has home run upside, has stolen base upside, and most importantly is cheap, because that's it on these small slates. And Herrera has the stolen base upside, so he walks in the 2nd inning, boom, he goes off, he takes off. Hit a double, actually almost hit one out in a foul ball, which would have really put me way ahead of everybody. But it just goes to show you on these little slates, you can get different. Then I took Stallings against Smiley, still optimal. It was a very unusual construction, but on these little slates, like I said, you can pick out the bats you want. And then I have Vlad Guerrero as the 1-off, who, again, could have had even a bigger night, but.
Hey, could you do me a favor? Can you pull up the 3rd and 4th place finisher and see if he duped his own lineups?
I actually don't think he did. I think I did check this before. I think it was 1 spot different. Let me see.
That got a 0 or something?
Maybe it was the same one. Yeah, it looks like they might have. So I thought I checked it last night and they didn't. He was clear of me for so long, I kind of forgot about him. No, they're the same lineups. That's a pretty weird thing to do. There's no real logical.
I see a lot of that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's totally by accident. I know it's by accident.
You don't see it in 333s very often.
Well, because what happened, again, as I mentioned last night, I mean, last night when Velasquez got scratched, everybody was scrambling.
You were totally right. And by the way, it worked out well for us. It worked out well for me because I came off, and even Dickerson was a good play, but I came off of Dickerson and changed my lineup to Martinez and Herrera. So that ended up working out versus Dickerson. And I can't remember who my other guy would have been. It actually still might have been okay because I think it might have been Brian Reynolds who had a home run also. But either way, the overall point of not needing to stack is.
I'll tell you, man, it's such a good. I'm telling you, and then you embrace this a little bit. Such a good feeling when you see you win and like the guys underneath you all have the parentheses next to them.
Yeah, it's
You're right.
You're right, absolutely. But anyway, yeah, it was a great night, and it's, you know, oddly enough, like I whittled my lineups down because I didn't play that many of the long shot stuff or whatever, and this was actually my best score, and it feels great. And the weird part is, for a minute, I had a hedge stack with the Dodgers. I had four guys who were everybody had like 15 to 25. And I had Alcantara as my main pitcher on FanDuel, and I had a Dodgers stack. So if the Dodgers had gone really off, I would have had a good chance over on FanDuel as well. So at first I didn't know what I wanted to happen in the Dodger game, but then I realized that, like, if you're in first place, you just want it to hold. You don't even care anymore. Just don't mess with I need 4 home runs from this game or something like that. But it felt great. It was actually pretty clear and easy, other than the Will Smith thing. Will Smith and Albert Pujols were my only, and Pujols would have had to hit 2 more home runs, like I said. And Will Smith would have needed another 4 points, but he, you know, after hitting a 7th inning home run to take the lead. Anyway, great night. Thrilled to be back on top. It feels great to win. Love that you won. And with that said, I think we can get ready and get the people some good information for tonight. I also believe in it's interesting. The day we started our Discord, I had a big win. And I think you had a big win that weekend. Big wins that weekend. And now we start. You know, we actually tell the site we're beta testing, and now we're starting to catch fire a little bit. It's kind of fun.
Let's do it.
All right, pull up your screen and we're ready to go.
All right.
This is the monster slate, by the way. This is a tough slate.
Yeah.
You don't think so? Okay.
I do. I have the most important question of the slate for me is coming up very, very soon. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so let's start with Boston, Philadelphia. You like, oh my God, they got no shame. Perez 9,400. That's really funny.
I kind of like when they're, even if it's off or whatever, because every now and then you get a chance to take a picture that might make some sense. Obviously, we're not going to play Perez here, but every now and then, they really are making it tough. Good for them. You know what I mean? Pitchers have been underpriced all year. Anybody with the chance to get over 30 basically, or on a regular basis, should be like 11 plus K every time. And
I have Nola ranked like 6th or 7th. As far as like value, you know, everything. When I ever say ranking, I'm never talking about just like pure points. I'm just saying just my rankings. I have like 6th or 7th. I just feel as though if I'm going to pay that, I'm gonna play Bauer. So I don't think I'm going to get to Nola. But if I play a bunch of lineups, I'll certainly collab some.
Yeah, I like Nola against righties. You have a righty dominant lineup. Going to a National League park after scoring a bunch of runs in a tiny little park, even though what's weird is to say that Philly is actually a park downgrade for Boston. But between between Fenway Park, Yankee Stadium, the Blue Jays field, and Camden Yards, this is actually like only just barely beneath all of those. What's weird about this is I'm getting a different run total. Oh no, there it goes. It just hadn't updated. I do think there's one-off I want to play. I would have some interest in Alex Verdugo today as a one-off at 3.7. No one's going to play him. I do look looking for lefties against Nola. I got to double check the BVP history because there's a little bit, not only it's a huge amount, but he would be the only guy I would consider. Devers is actually cheap enough to where you could argue for him as well. Not cheap enough. I mean, he's not cheap. He's 5,200. But again, it's a huge slate. You'll see why we don't want to get into this. But I'm going to be into the side on the Philly side a little bit. Like, not the whole stack, but I'll take Rhys Hoskins at 4,500 against a lefty. I mean, I know he hasn't been the same this year. This guy's historic numbers against lefties are terrific. Andrew McCutchen, terrific numbers against lefties for his career. One of, like, just absolutely awesome. 4.3, very reasonable. Alec Baum, totally on board. If you wanted to make a full stack, use Odubel Herrera. The Red Sox bullpen has got to be kind of worn out a little bit after all the guys they've used. Perez was a guy I always don't want to pick on because he tends to limit damage, and more importantly, everyone tries to pick on him. But now it's sort of shifted because he's had some really good outings in a row, some fairly easy opponents as well. I could see getting behind a little bit of Philly, and especially if Real Muto's back in, I don't mind this as a secondary stack or even a primary stack. I don't entirely believe in Boston's depth in their bullpen, so if you can get Wild Perez and he's out in 4 innings, the Philly score runs for some reason in the 6th inning or on more than anybody. It seems like. Anyway, I'm on board with all of this. I would play Herrera even again as lefty. It doesn't really matter for him at the bottom of the order. I just think this is one of the spots that might be a little overlooked, and I might actually let weather decide a little bit of it for me. So I'm actually going to pull up my weather page real quick. But yeah, are you interested in Philly at all?
No, I have them as like my third group.
This is awesome.
Which means I have interest in them. The other thing I should stress is that I do like Nola quite a bit on FanDuel. I mean, he's much cheaper over there.
Yeah.
He's like one of my top guys over there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. All right, what about I just want to say that early look is that this is awesome hitting environment, and we won't have pitchers umpire data. My guess is today because of the first game of the series on the Friday. So it's going to be hard until at least later, if at all, that we'll get umpire data.
All right. So for me, the most important question I have for you is: do we have any issues with Strasburg's pitch count or anything, or no?
I honestly would like to have a clearer answer on that myself. As it stands, I think that you should assume that he's going to be able to throw 80 to. Look, they're not going to overly tax him. Okay. It's a good question. There's no way I cannot see him coming out his first game without having a no-hitter going or something where they let him throw 100+ pitches. Can you? Why would
you're saying that he could throw a no-hitter?
I'm saying unless is throwing a no-hitter, I don't see him doing that. No, of course he could throw a no-hitter. I mean, look, these days,
everybody throws a no-hitter.
Yeah, just not. I mean, but anyway, no, I'm just saying that unless he's throwing a no-hitter, I don't really see how he has the leash to go 100+ pitches, unless I haven't heard that news yet. And if we hear that news and he's good to pitch normally, I would absolutely load up on Strasburg here if we get that news. But I don't think that's
what I was going to say. If I get full go, full steam ahead for Strasburg, he's probably my top pitcher, everything else included. If not, then I have a different guy. So that's what I have to research and keep our ears out. But I think by 6 o'clock we'll have an idea. Yeah, that was my first comment about this game. The second one is I do like what a big surprise. I like Washington as my second tier of hitting stacks because they still remain cheap. But that's where I'm pretty much at. So I have Washington in my second tier of stacks, and I have Strasburg as a big fat question mark, exclamation mark. You know what I mean? If I get full run out of him, he's gonna be my top pitcher.
Yeah, I definitely get the Washington stack. The numbers jump off the page. Also, Baltimore I'm very skeptical of their bullpen in general. I do think that you could make a case for Jorge Lopez at 5,400.
Okay.
This Washington team, look, they've let us down in the best hitting possible spots. Basically, they let us down in Coors even. And they also did some things too. You know what I mean? It's not like they did nothing. But you have a team that is really outside of a couple guys, not that intimidating of a lineup, facing Jorge Lopez, who I think is better than he's pitched this year. But I mean, listen to these last opponents. Yankees, Boston, Seattle. That was a good one. He actually, he had 18 fantasy points against Boston, pitched 5 2/3 in that one. Yankees before that, Oakland, then he had an easier one against Texas, had 25 fantasy points against Texas, then Boston and New York. And when you're pitching against Boston and New York every single game, you're going to look like an awful, horrible pitcher. If Jorge Lopez was 7K, I wouldn't be talking about him, but he's 5,400. It's just a guy who I'm considering as a long shot play on a slate where I feel like pitching is really, I think it's tough. I actually think it's hard to commit for me on DraftKings. to loving anybody. So I have Lopez on the list, and like you, I have Washington as a very good secondary stack, but I don't think that they're going to be my favorite by the end of the day.
Hey, you want to press on?
Yeah. White Sox and Yankees, go ahead.
What's that?
White Sox and Yankees. What are your thoughts here?
Probably a pass. I don't know what to make of the Rodon Yankee. The Rodon Yankee matchup is very it's very dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that. I don't think I'm going to mess with it either way. And I didn't really get to too much. Am I missing something? Is anybody a real standout here?
No, I think both of these sides have a really good argument to take some hitters, because these are just Chicago just kills lefties, just kills them. I mean, your numbers this year are out of control. So I'm going to get an unowned Tim Anderson. I understand there's a lot of good guys to spend up for, but I'll take that shot at 1% or 2%, whatever he is. Aaron Judge against the lefty at 4 or 5% or something. Yes, sir. I mean, just if I look at each individual bat, I could make the same argument actually. And then on the other side, by the way, just real quick about Tony La Russa, he should go F himself. I'm sorry. You don't tell a young guy who's crushing everything in the world and get angry at him and I'll deal with him and all this stuff and get angry at him after the other team tries to throw at him. How crazy is that? You know what I mean? Because
you know what, you pause for just a second. What were you saying?
I was on just a really quick rant about Yerman Mercedes swinging 3-0 and La Russa going after him and stuff afterwards, and his own manager, and also not defending him when he gets thrown at the next at bat. If you're swinging 3-0 and you're up 14-1, look, these guys are playing for contracts. Everything they do matters. It's absolutely insane. This old school baseball rules is BS. It's nonsense. Anybody who follows it is nonsense. It absolutely is a joke. You should be swinging all the time. You should be out there to try and get hits every time you're up there. Nobody's going to factor in when all your home runs are hit. You have to try to do it for yourself anyway. And this kid's been on fire for him all season, so I wouldn't go after him. I really like Andrew Vaughn as a value play. He's the one who stands out the most other than Anderson. Other than that, it would be maybe a Mercedes if I was willing to spend up, but there's just other places you're going to want to spend up more. But I do think this is an interesting way to get different with guys who aren't different. You know if that makes sense?
Yep.
So I do think Judge Anderson are my favorites from this game.
Tony La Russa managed the Oakland A's in the World Series against the Reds and got swept as a 2-1 favorite in every single game. So I don't want to hear it. Anyway,
that A's team was one of the all-time great teams too.
Yep.
All right. I mean, I actually we may Rodon can be combustible, by the way. This is the Yankees as a full stack in large field is on the table, and we'll review the stacks at the end. I know we're going to say a lot of them because there's a lot of guys, but he's good, but he's combustible. All right, so Milwaukee, Cincinnati. What are your sort of initial thoughts on these pitchers here?
I will say that that I have no interest in Hauser and I have no interest in Hoffman. Although I'll just remind people that when you get pitchers coming out of Coors, they some pitchers can improve. That's just, or they can at least be on the right side of Babbitt or whatever it is. You know what I mean? They could survive a little bit more. But I don't have much interest in the pitchers. What I do have is interest in the hitters. To the point, I guess that they're just going to be forced to be popular, I guess. But right now, I think I have Milwaukee as my top stack across the board, whether it be DraftKings or on FanDuel. So that's where I am. So Yelich, Vogelbach, Narvaez, Wong, I guess, Shaw. That's where I'm at. So everything I said about Hoffman makes sense, I guess. But in this particular spot, Milwaukee is showing up as my top stack, and I'm looking at ownership, and I'm not going to be the only one, I guess, to have that take. But that's where I am right now.
Yeah, so I'm sort of mixed on this one. Like you said, it feels weird to pick on a guy who was a Coors pitcher outside of Coors, even though he's not a Coors pitcher anymore, obviously. I don't think the ownership is as crazy as I thought it was going to be. I think Yelich is, pretty clearly, I think that if I was playing a cash game today, he sort of fits that sweet spot in the outfield that I really, 4,800 is just, Christian Yelich will be 6K again at some point, and he's hitting in Cincinnati, which is a little bandbox. It's a great hitter's park, obviously. Seeing the weather edge part of this, pretty standard for normal for Cincinnati games, which is good for hitting. 84 degrees though, that's pretty sweet. So I get it. I don't love stacking bad hitting teams on big slates, but Yelich and Narvaez especially do stand out. And then the stack becomes really easy because you can play Garcia, Kane, Vogelbach. I like all of these guys and Travis Shaw. But I don't know that I want to go for my full 5-man stack in a game like this. I will say that I've had a lot of good historic results with stacking Cincinnati, Milwaukee games. The problem with, partially because they're good hitting environments and like that, especially in Cincinnati. But the problem here I'm having is that they're pretty good bullpen in Milwaukee. And I, for the life of me, can't figure out why Cincinnati's run total is quite as high and why is Adrian Hauser, is there something I'm missing? Is he on a weird pitch count that we haven't heard about? Because I don't understand, for a guy who had 10 Ks 2 starts ago and, hasn't been awesome with his strikeouts this season, but is still like pretty close to 1 per inning. Why is he projected to have 3.5 strikeouts in this matchup? And I know Cincinnati doesn't strike out a ton, but they do have strikeouts in the lineup. Like, I don't know. So I'm sort of flirting with the idea of Hauser as a potential. He reminds me of, he's a typical Milwaukee guy. He's not as good as the other guys, but he's a poor man's version of the Burns and Woodruff. And I think he's got upside. So he's on my list is all I can say. And
that's very surprising. I didn't think that would be part of your thing. I seem to have remembered, I don't want to see you being down on him, but there were a couple of times where he was like kind of chalky over the last couple of years where you didn't think he had a lot of
I mean, again, he's not quite as high a strikeout guy, but I mean, look, right. 2 starts ago, he struck out 10, even if it's Miami, right. He got 10 batters, you know what I mean? Yeah, like that's good enough for me. I'd have taken a shot at a 5% owned guy who, if you like, you compare him versus Strasburg, assuming, that Strasburg is going to throw 85 pitches or so, which is what most guys do coming back. I would say he's probably ahead just because of the long-term upside, even though Strasburg is clearly a better pitcher against a worse team. So I just think he's interesting. I don't know. Look, I'm still, like I said, pitching is the hardest thing for me on this slate. So I think on FanDuel also you can play the Cincinnati bats a little bit easier. Don't really have a ton of interest in them on the DraftKings side. Also, again, once you get past Hauser, you do get a pretty good bullpen. So you might get 6 runs early and feel like you're off and running, but then no more for the rest of the game. All right, next game.
Yep.
2 good pitcher, or sorry, a 1 good pitcher and a Jordan Holloway. And
yeah, I like the Mets a little bit as a secondary or third. Yeah, they're like my second tier along with another team, which I'm going to get to.
Is this a doubleheader by any chance?
I don't know. I
figure out why the run. You know what? Guess the run total for this game.
Holloway, 8.5.
7.
7.
That makes you feel like it's a 7-inning game, doesn't it? I have to double check. Is there a day doubleheader? We can figure that stuff out. Sometimes, guys, look, this is our first look stuff, so it's not always going to have everything, and we obviously come back for you in the evening.
Yeah, we'll figure this out very quickly. Actually.
Yeah, but I cannot understand it. Like, I'm totally confused. Anyway, she's talk about it a little bit because I'm not finding myself getting to a whole lot in this game.
Yeah, I am getting to a little bit of the Mets here. And I have I didn't quite get to Stroman. I'm sure he's in good shape to get a win, but I don't, he doesn't have the strikeouts really. But I do like some of these Mets. Oh man, this is like not the lineup you expect to see, like Khalil Lee and Jonesby Fargas. There's Villar, Lindor. Is what's his name out?
Maybe it's just, everybody's out. That might just be why the run total is so low. I mean, Cameron Maven's batting 3rd for Christ's sakes. You know what I mean? Jonathan VR, who was barely a platoon player on opening day for them, is now batting leadoff. The only real hitter, quote, real hitter that they have in their lineup is Francisco Lindor, who stopped being a real hitter.
I'm probably gonna pass.
But any of these bats are cheap enough to where I think that you can use anybody, sure. But it's in Miami. I think we just skip this game. I do think Stroman, I think this is actually a full game. I just think this is really bad lineups. But I do think that Stroman, if it was the second of a doubleheader, I would love Stroman here because I think that this is a really good spot for him to go 7 innings, which would mean a complete game. And I think that he's probably an okay play anyway. I just think that it's hard on a big slate to not take a pitcher who doesn't have the K upside that you really want.
You know anything about the pitcher for the Mets, or I mean for the?
It's going to be like a bullpen game. He pitches a few innings, and it's not that they have a good bullpen. Miami, they don't, but they have when they do these bullpen games, they've actually had pretty good results so far in terms of limiting damage from the other side. So I'm willing enough to respect that. And I don't like the Mets hitting enough. If I wouldn't feel bad to end up on a last spot with VR. I wouldn't feel bad to end up. I wouldn't play Lindor probably, even though I like him. I just think there's too many good shortstops. You can play it. You can make it even an argument for guys like Cameron Maybin at 2.9. I mean, batting third. They're so cheap, but I don't really like any individual ones. The only maybe James McCann, I guess at 3,400 is a reasonable play, but nobody who stands out as being exceptional.
Okay, you want to move on?
Yep.
I didn't really make anything of either of these two pitchers. And I did get to some Minnesota as my as along the lines of Washington and Philly and another team is kind of my third group, which now the Mets is now down to my third group. I have one team by itself in the second group, which we'll get to. So I do like Minnesota somewhat. I don't know if Dobnak, McKenzie's out to pitch a whole game. So I do like Kepler, I suppose, and the standard Minnesota guys, whoever's in. I have them as a possible stat.
Yeah, I have a ton of interest in the general. I just want to say, like, Minnesota has been really disappointing this year. They've had some bad luck, with Buxton and things like that. But they've just been really bad in real life. And in that, you look at their run totals, like it was like last year where you couldn't go a 10-game stretch without seeing at least 2 or 3, usually 3 10-run explosions from this offense. And that's just not who they've been so far. I'm willing to forgo some of that. I think McKenzie's has got great stuff. Like, I think he's got stuff to be a really good pitcher. But I love trying to, you take a team that has guys who maybe they haven't been this year as much, but Donaldson, Cruz, Polanco, even Kepler. Like, there's some good professional hitters in this lineup, and then there's a huge drop off on the bottom of their lineup. So the full stack, it's hard to keep it going, kind of. But maybe a little mini stack from Minnesota. Or even the part about McKenzie is if he loses his control, though, you might get like an explosion game from this team or an opportunity for it. So I'm sort of flirting with whether I would want to go like 3, 4, or 5 man. My initial thoughts were 3, but I think there's a good argument for a 5-man stack here and using one of the Rortford, whatever, as your catcher is the cheap option. Probably not going to play Taylor Larnach because there's just too many other cheap guys I like better. But I do think Minnesota's on my list for stacks, even though, like I said, I do like Tristan McKenzie and his future. And if he was 6K on DraftKings, I'd be arguing for him as a potential SP2. I also like on Cleveland. I don't want to go crazy with Cleveland in a bullpen game, but I'm a little bit into Ramirez and Reyes as always. Jose Ramirez is, in my opinion, he's the Ronald Acuna of the third base position. You just want to try and get him in every night if it's me these days. And I think Franmil Reyes has sort of quietly become he's like a really good power hitter and no one really ever plays him. I also think Eddie Rosario at 3.3 is one of your better values that no one's going to play. I know he's having a little bit of a down year, but I think Eddie Rosario, we know his past from Minnesota, a little revenge factor there. It's just been a while since we've really seen him do much, but he's a guy who just has an immense amount of power and a pretty great track record. And you have, he's 3.3K. That's all I got for you.
You want to press on?
Yes, sir. Atlanta and Pittsburgh, I am not going to play either pitcher, but I definitely understand the argument for Ian Anderson. I just don't think I'm going to do it at 10.5. Pittsburgh's like a little funny. They're not even pesky where they score runs. They don't hit the ball far. Well, last night they had a couple, but in general they don't do much. They're getting a little healthier with their lineup. Polanco's back. I actually it's a pretty good matchup for Anderson, but he's 10.5. I just can't do it. Are you interested in either of these guys?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm interested in a little bit of Anderson. He's not my top 2 or 3, but he's in.
They're
So
both
for
Anderson.
me, what's that?
They're both Andersons.
Yeah,
Anderson.
Anderson. He's I have him alongside of Nola and Glasnow as whatever. Again, I prefer Bauer to all of them, but I have him in there. I mean, I'll if I play 20 lineups, I'll definitely play some of him. And Atlanta, I have no. I was expecting to have some Atlanta. No, I really don't. I mean, I may have some Atlanta on FanDuel, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I thought that when I first looked last night at this slate, because I was sweating my other one to try and distract myself. I thought everyone was gonna be on Atlanta for a minute. And I thought I would have to make my normal, hey, Tyler Anderson isn't bad argument.
Right.
And, and I've done that how many times this year. And not only is he not bad, if you look at both pitchers, and this guy's going to be literally 0.0% owned. And I'm just saying, like, he's put up he's at around over his last 6 starts, he's averaging around 20 and he's 7,300. I'm not going to use him. I'm just saying maybe I would rather use him though than even Ian Anderson. I just don't love. I'm not going to probably do anything with it, but the truth is, Anderson's great. Acuna is just the greatest. I mean, I don't care if he had a bad night. So I love Acuna as a one-off if you can afford him, and Austin Riley is the other one that stands out. Other than that, I'm probably not getting involved in this game on either side. I just don't see any reason to on this slate.
Okay.
This is a weird game we've got coming up here.
Yeah. As I mentioned, I think Glasnow I'll have him alongside of Nola and Anderson, and obviously that you can tell the difference, right? Glasnow is probably a better pitcher than those 2 guys, but he's got the tougher matchup than those 2 guys, and that's why I have them. That's why they're projected the way they are. That's why I have them pretty much equal. Again, I'm not too particularly interested, as I say every day, in messing with Toronto. So I also can see where people are going to argue that Glasnow is a really good tournament player, right? I mean, because he's got that strikeout upside. But I don't know, man. Toronto just seems like they put up 8 runs every freaking game, So I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. I'll probably end up not playing him after all is said and done. And then with respect to, I'm not playing Anthony Kay, and I think I'm going to pass. I don't really have any of this stuff in any of my early looks.
Okay, so that was my initial thinking as well. Now I'm very clear that there's no way Glasnow ends up being extremely popular. And I would just say that what's weird is I can make an argument both ways. Pivetta was good last night against Toronto. I know it sounds crazy to say, but he was actually pretty good, and he still gave up a bunch of runs. But he pitched like what do you have? I think he had 7 or 8. He had 8 strikeouts in 6 innings or something like that. But he had like 6 runs. Tyler Glasnow is an extreme ultimate dream of where Nick Pivetta might be. And if you talk about the best pitchers going, and he is awesome against righties, and it's only 66 plate appearances against him, but guess how many in 66 plate appearances he struck out 27 of these guys. So his K rate is around 45% against these guys, which is kind of crazy. I know it's a great hitter's park, but if you're not hitting the ball, it's not going to matter. So I am very happy to take a lower owned Glasnow. And I'm usually the guy saying not to play Glasnow because he's 50% owned and all of this stuff. Today, I'm definitely leaning towards playing Glasnow, even though it's scary in that stadium. If this game was in Tampa Bay, I wouldn't even feel scared about it. with Toronto. But if it's in Toronto, it's obviously terrifying because that little stadium is scary. But I love Tampa Bay too tonight. I don't know how to do it exactly. Let me rephrase. I love Zunino. I don't mind Meadows in the lefty. It depends on where Brousseau hits. You think they'd move him up after hitting a home run last time, but probably won't get many at bats. That's the problem. Is it's really hard to figure out how to stack him. But the guy who I don't want to lose track of, and I don't know why no one will ever play him except for Sheets last season, who played him every single day in the postseason, and that's Randy Arozarena, who is completely awesome right now on both ends of the outfield and I mean, he's made some amazing plays. He's put up 33 and 37 in his last 2 games, and against the lefty, he's not going to be owned at that park. Give me okay, he's going to be owned. It's a mistake of what I'm looking at right now. I really like Arozarena. He's one of my favorite plays on the slate, and I like Zunino as a catching option, and Brousseau depending on where he bats. So that's it for this game. If you're going to play one bat against Glasnow in this stadium, it would be Randall Grichuk for me. 3 home runs, 15 at bats against him so far, and a good fastball hitter. Glasnow will challenge you, so that's the only one I'd consider, but probably not going to do it. And again, we're talking about Tampa Bay mini stack, probably not a full stack, but I don't mind it either way. It's a great ballpark upgrade for them, and Tampa Bay, when they go on runs, they can really score. It's just hard to know who to play exactly.
I'm not going to play Kyle Gibson. I could see 7,100 for him is a good price in general. I don't particularly like the matchup, and just it's such an enormous slate that I don't think I'm going to get down to him. That was my only look. And the only other thing that I thought of is that Gibson does give up some hard contact. So I was looking at maybe some one-offs on the other side, and Kyle Tucker was the one that stood out for me. But all these Houston guys, I think, are kind of in play. But none of them are coming up as like part of like a primary, even a secondary stack. So I'm just presuming that that's because they're probably all really expensive. So I'm just kind of like looking at it now, and there it is. So Altuve 6, they're all like 6K, right? No wonder. But I think Tucker is the one that I would play from this from the Houston side.
Yeah, can we like petition to get him out of the 7 hole? Is he actually projected in the lineup today? Yeah, here he is. 7. If we can get him out of this, I don't understand it, man. Like, just take him out of the 7 hole. Like, find a way to get that guy higher up in the lineup.
Yeah, but I don't know how. I mean, like.
Well, I mean.
He's better than Brantley, isn't he?
Actually, no. You know what? I looked at the rest of their lineup, and God, their lineup when they're healthy, they're pretty. I mean, he's better than Gurriel, but Gurriel's been killing the ball this year. He's better in general than Gurriel, but yeah, I agree with you. Kyle Tucker would be the one who stands out the most. I don't mind using a righty here against them. These guys are freaking, like, they cost everything except for Maldonado, and Maldonado may end up being your catcher if you need exactly 2K for a catcher, just because that's the way it works. I do have a little bit of interest in Texas. Bullpen game should be a bullpen-ish game, right? I mean, I don't have a ton of information on Tyler Ivey, but he's only pitched 2 innings and 1 inning, so I think I don't know who the long guy is even going to be here. But I think anytime that happens, and you've got your Texas guys who just are just really cheap, Joey Gallo at 3.8 is going to be of interest to me. Adolis Garcia. I don't think I'm fully stacking Texas or anything, but I do like those guys. And then, of course, every time I mention anybody from Texas, I have to say Nate Lowe, because every time I mention anybody else, he's the one who hits the home run. And Willie Calhoun and David Dahl are super cheap. So if you wanted to get a super cheap secondary stack that has a ton of power upside, it would be a Texas mini stack for me today. And I'm not a big Texas guy in general, obviously, but I do like those bats. We can move on.
Yeah, so this is the chalk pitcher, right?
For me, it is. I don't know how the ownership projections are looking on your end. I do not understand how he's not owned by everybody.
He'll be 30%.
Should be.
He'll be 30%.
I mean, in all fairness, he's faced this team. What has he faced him? Only twice. No, only once. I thought he faced him a couple times. Yeah. I mean, do you have any argument with him being a good pitching option?
No. I mean, he's my okay. I don't want to say devil's advocate. So I would rather, not rather. So what if Strasburg gets full go ahead? You can play them both, I guess. But there's the range is like is not exactly great. You know, like you want to really pay 1,100 more for Paddock. I guess that would be the argument. Or you could play Hendricks if you want. But like Minor's got that strikeout upside. You know what I mean? Like Minor's just like the best play in that range, you know? So I have no argument with it. You know what I mean? Like he's against, again, like we talked about this with the Tigers a lot, you know, like especially against lefties, they're just really not good, and they strike out a lot, and Minor with it's just particularly good against lefties. So it's particularly good against teams like this. So I think that he's a standout. He just is. And I'm not getting to any of the hitting from either side.
I'm interested a little bit in the Royals. Pretty good hitting weather. Urena hasn't, as you say, been really good since the Eisenhower administration. I think you're going to get really low ownership on all these guys except for Benintendi. He's the only one I can see cracking double digits, and then even then probably barely. I like Soler. Look, it's too expensive for Merrifield and Perez, but no one's going to play them, and this is a spot where things could get out of hand if you get to Urena early with the Detroit bullpen. So that's what I'm looking for. Got really good hitting environment today for KC wise, at least a pretty big bump for them. The wind blowing out to left. So I do like KC. They're one of the teams on my list.
And just so we're clear, you like Minor, right?
Yeah, right now I love Minor. I don't. I agree with what you said about Strasburg. It would change things maybe if maybe it could. But. So
what do you think about maybe Kyle Hendricks as a pivot? I mean, he's just not the same. You know what I mean? He's not like your typical DFS type guy you want to really go after. So I'm probably not going to go there. I mean, I'm just kind of screwing around with being devil's advocate here. I just don't have him in my top list of pitchers that I'm going to play. And Carlos Martinez, no, thank you. And you know, I do have other teams I'm going to play, but it's just not going to be from this game either. I don't really have the Cubs or the Cardinals. But is it possible again that Carlos Martinez just can't get anybody out anymore? Is that possible?
Well, the weirdest part is that it's not like he's actually pitching like terribly. Like he's given up 2 home runs this year, and those were in the first 2 games he pitched.
Oh wow, okay.
He hasn't been striking people out, and he's been giving up some hard contact. But at the same time, you look at his games last games, 5 innings, 8 innings, 7 1/3, 6 innings, 5 innings, 5 innings, 5 innings. He's been an effective pitcher for a 6,900 guy. The Cubs have some strikeouts, but they also are patient, and that doesn't tend to bode well for Martinez, who has, he walked 5 guys in his last outing against the Rockies at home, which probably has, nobody's going to play Carlos Martinez. I think both these guys are good large field tournament plays, especially Hendricks. And I really think that I'm going to have to do some digging on Hendricks' BVP, which I'll do actually really quickly right now, because he's obviously had a lot of experience with this team in the same division. Because they've both been there for a while. So let's just see real quickly how he sort of fared against them, because it should be a pretty large sample size. And people who think that BVP it really matters for pitchers. Like if you had over 100 at bats as a team, that's a pretty good sample size of stuff. And you've got 182 at bats against him. 51 of those are Matt Carpenter, who probably won't play. So you can sort of throw that one out, and that's the guy he's kind of owned. They haven't hit him really at all, but he also hasn't striking. He doesn't strike out a ton of them either. And this is not a high strikeout team, but he is 7,400. So he's on the list along with Martinez. Like I said, I really struggle with pitching today. We're going to figure it out by the end. And I think that I might end up just doing my weird thing again in the next game. We'll talk about that. But I'm not interested in the hitting from either of these sides. I certainly can understand the Cubs argument, but I don't think that I want to, I never like to pick on Hendricks. It's kind of sucks. If you look at Hendricks' game log, it's literally every other game he has a gem, and then he has a terrible one. He either puts up 20 to 30, or he puts up 4, and literally it's been every other game this season. And last time he put up 31. So maybe he breaks the trend tonight, but yeah, I just can't find an individual Cubs bat that I feel like I need to play. I'm interested where Ian Happ would bat. I think he would be probably the guy I'm most interested in because he's 3.1. But again, there's lots of good value. And then I'm also interested in Jock Peterson against Martinez, but I don't love the idea of Jock Peterson getting pinch hit for at some point if Martinez does get wild early. But Jock Peterson and Happ, I consider really, really good home run possibilities. That's all I got for this one.
Okay. The slate that never ends.
It's a crazy slate.
Is it possible they're like, if you multiply the games by 2, you get like apparently more than the teams that are in the league somehow?
Right.
So it's like 40 teams to choose from.
Right.
Okay. So, there's a Coors game. Oh, by the way. I have Arizona as like a, second to third tier option. I actually like Colorado significantly more than Arizona, which is interesting because Colorado has been, pretty weak hitting team, but they have the better matchup. And I will say this, this is like a 1-game sample, whatever it is, only because I happen to have been watching, is I think rumors of Charlie Blackmon's demise might be exaggerated. I saw him, I had all the Snell the other night, and he was all over him. Like he really, really swung the bat really, really well. He hit one to the wall. He hit another one just to the right of the foul pole. I don't know, man. I don't think he's that bad right now. I think that he's not completely done yet. And again, there's something to be said about the fact that the first couple of weeks Colorado was playing at home. They were playing in 30-degree weather. So I do like Colorado more than I like Arizona here. And I am not going to be playing Marquez on this slate, just to get that out of the way. And that's where I'm at. Where are you in this game?
Shocker, Colorado rates as the best stack for me. It's look, it's never fun, but if you're going to do it, it's better to do it on a full slate where there's other places to go, and maybe you mix in some things. Maybe you play the Colorado stack and you leave out one of Blackmon or Story, especially, let's say you leave out Story and play Tim Anderson instead, and Story still hits a home run, but Anderson has a home run and a stolen base. You know what I mean? You know my thinking on that kind of stuff. That's sort of how I like to try to get a little different if I'm going to use a chalky stack. But CJ Cron, they're just too cheap. Like Cron, even Tapia, I really like Colorado today. And I also think that Arizona, okay, so this is going to be crazy, but when I made all my first builds, and I'm not really thinking about coming off of it, to be honest with you, I love Marquis tonight. Look, even in his last 2 starts, like you get Cincinnati at home, 6 innings, 8 Ks. Sure, he gave up 4 runs. That's going to happen in Colorado. He still has 19 fantasy points, 5,700 when we want bats in a tighter thing. And there's upside. This guy's put up, at home 27 plus this year. In the past, we've seen him put up 45s at home. Like he's a monster when he gets going. I don't have respect for this Arizona lineup very much. They are better with Marte back in there. They are really cheap if you want to stack them. And like David Peralta what I don't understand is if really no one's going to play Marquez, why is David Peralta going to be unowned at 4,100? I just don't understand that. I like Marte also at 53 and Escobar, but they're more expensive. And I know Peralta hasn't been the same this year, but I'll take the long term. I also would this is another great game to have to look at a quick BVP just because Marquez has faced this team a million times. And I know we're going long today, guys, but hopefully you guys appreciate it. And we'll also be able to, I'll as we keep going with the site and stuff, we'll do shorter videos, but I think going through this whole process is really helpful for me and Sheets. So hopefully it is for you as well. But Marquez, against this team, they've hit him pretty good. The strikeout rate is also pretty good. Just take Peralta, for example, though. Peralta's 15 for 41 off of him. That's a pretty big sample size. And that's a guy who's 4,100 in Coors, and so Peralta does stand out to me as the guy you want to get. At the same time, while people might want to play Marte and Escobar's 11 for 20 off of him too. So that's pretty solid. Dalton Varsho would be the catching option you'd be using today, in my opinion. If you're playing a cash game at the moment, if he's in the lineup, and it's a high risk play with Mark. We know what we're doing, okay, right? We know exactly what we're trying to do with him. I would love to see. I really would love that. This is a game I want to get a pitcher's umpire on, and I want to find out if we have one. But if we have a pitcher's umpire, I'm very happy to take my shots with Marquis at 5,700, because with all the great pitchers are in really tough matchups today, and he actually has a chance to like compete with those guys. Sort of like I said about Morton the other day. The upside is there for him to put up a 30 spot, and if things break his way. And Arizona leaving Dodger Stadium, I get, and it's a huge upgrade. Maybe they go crazy. Pavin Smith is 3,800. There's a lot of reasons to play Arizona here because of their prices. Leba's 2,800 at shortstop or second base. There's a lot of good explanations. And by the way, Colorado, I don't expect Arizona to be as high owned, as very high owned. So I get both sides of it, but I'm leaning personally towards Marquis until I find another SP2 that I really like.
You know, there's 100 pitchers on the slate. Maybe we shouldn't be playing Minor if he's 30%.
I don't know if he'll be 30%, but yeah, I hear you. 100 pitchers, but they're all in sort of weirdly tough spots except for Minor.
Yeah, Oakland Angels. I have just true transparency. I don't have any of the pitchers, but I have Oakland as my 6th favorite FanDuel stack. So that's all the takes I have here. Is neither pitchers, but Oakland my 6th favorite FanDuel stack.
Okay.
Got anything?
I mean, Shohei Ohtani is like the greatest player of all time. Maybe it's time we realize that 5.8 is actually okay for him. So Quintana, again, there's a wide range of outcomes with him. So I kind of get the Oakland stuff, and I kind of want to see how the lineup shakes out, because, you know, if Pinder got a spot 6 or above, I would have some interest in Pinder at 2.6 at shortstop. I could get behind a mini Oakland. I've mentioned a bunch of other mini stacks, and they're behind that for me, but I totally understand it, and it definitely crossed my mind as well. I think that Matt Olson and a lefty at 4,200 even is completely fine. Lefty. Remember, guys, when guys are basically the same power stuff, righties against righties, you know, we don't even think about it. And lefties, we go, oh, we can't play them against lefties. These guys, Matt Olson can hit lefties as well as he hits righties for power, or close enough to where 4,200 is reasonable. Matt Chapman is awesome against lefties. I don't know how they're gonna take a game in LA with the Angels and not like a perfect spot. I'm just sort of blah on this game, but I definitely understand an argument for mini stacks on both sides. I do think Justin Upton is strongly in play at 3K. All right, ready to move on?
Yeah. San Francisco, you got to hand it to them, man. They took it to the freaking chalk in the early slate yesterday in fine style. They had Molly, who went off at 1,000,000% owned, who was on a slate where you had no good pitching, and they put up a 10 spot like before you even blinked. They're good, and they have a chance to do it again. And I don't think they're going to. I like Bauer. I think he's my favorite. I mean, he's really, 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 really expensive. And like I said, San Francisco's been pesky to be is kind of an understatement. I mean, they've been doing great.
Just simply good.
Yeah, they're good. But I kind of like getting double-digit strikeouts every game, and I kind of like. Now it is a really big ass slate. That's the thing. It's just such a big slate. But I just right now kind of like him the best. Alex Wood 10K not happening. And I didn't get to the Dodgers hitting today though. I think Wood's capable enough that I think that's why they're keeping the Dodgers low in my list here. What do you think about Bauer? What do you think about this game? What do you think in general?
So Alex Wood is one of our guys, our Dodger guys. You know, he was with us for a long time through a lot of good postseasons, a lot of struggles he's had. There's a lot of history. Every time that happens, I want to stack against them, especially when you have a team that's potent like the Dodgers, although they're less potent than they were to start the season when you've got Albert Pujols, although he had a home run, you know, DJ Peters and stuff instead of Corey Seager and Cody Bellinger in the lineup. It's definitely a little bit different. However, in San Francisco, I just can't do it. I just can't bring myself to make that stack. If it was during the day, if it wasn't 50 degrees out, is that right? It's 50 degrees. Like, I mean, San Francisco, man, it's cold, you know, I'm turning into the dad stuff sheets. I almost am quoting Mark Twain now. The coldest winter I ever spent was the summer in San Francisco. That's what this game reminds me of. So because of the San Francisco factor, I'm going to give Bauer a bump. However, I would say that I would expect Bauer to strike out less hitters tonight than he usually does. San Francisco is pesky enough. They will chase in the count early. They're smart. They play good fundamental baseball. And for a pitcher who's 11.9, my initial thought was, I don't, maybe I can just avoid Bauer today. This is a spot where I could see him just not doing quite enough to where he, maybe get you 20 to 25 or something. And you don't want that. But he does have the upside for the monster game every time he's out there. He's one of the best 5 pitchers in baseball. And I'm definitely going to have some of him. It doesn't feel great because I actually like the same. I mean, even this is the highest total I've seen against Bauer, and it's in San Francisco, which gives you an idea of what Vegas thinks about this game. And this game is nearly a pick'em. Who would have thought the Dodgers with Bauer pitching against the Giants all year would be
San Francisco is like they're like the nuts. I mean, like
crazy. It's wild. I mean, and they've justified it so far, but still, Bauer is clearly, if you have to bet on raw points, the guy you'd expect to score the highest raw points tonight. It's just he's going to be popular. There's plenty of ways to go, and it's not like an automatic matchup for him.
If you didn't like any of that, you could try what people have tried before, and I don't even have to look. It's not this year, but I'm fairly confident that Chris Paddock has been chalk against Seattle multiple times and busted every single time. That is my. I can't. It's not on this year's slate, so it's on this year's record. But I promise you that's the case. He's going to be, he might get some ownership on FanDuel. I mean, he's really cheap on FanDuel.
He's going to be popular on DraftKings.
Oh, he's going to try
he'll be 20%, or I would guess. I would guess he'd be 20% unless everybody talks everybody off of him all day.
Yeah. So, you know what? He's, like I said, there's not that many great options at the SP2. So he is, I mean, in fairness, if there's no Strasburg, and we got to talk about this. So Strasburg's my favorite SP2, maybe even depending on what SP2 means to you. Then Minor, and then Paddock, right? But I would play the first 2 before Paddock all day long. And I just don't feel as though, I mean, maybe Paddock is not going to. If Paddock is really popular, I'll be more than happy to take a shot with Seattle guys. Such a huge freaking slate, though. I don't even know how much leverage.
Yeah, I don't think you need to do that.
I don't know how much leverage you need today. You know what I mean?
Just Lewis and Kalinick they have legitimate guys who are decent baseball players that are 3,100 and 3,300.
Yeah.
And Tom Murphy at 2,400. Maybe you get a little mini version of that, or just use one of those pieces, or something like that. You know what I
mean? But before I forget, I mean, you got to wait all the way to the end. But probably my under Colorado, Milwaukee. I think San Diego is my 3rd favorite stack. So. Gotta wait all the way till 10:10 to get these 10:10 p.m. to start accruing fantasy points for me in their stacks. But I do like them quite a bit against Flex, and you get what's his name, I presume, back. You get Tatis back, and some of the other guys remain cheap. Let me just remind myself of who those people are. Grisham, Cronenworth, Profar, the Brian O'Grady character. I have to play Machado, but I could. Again, if you play these guys, you might not be able to, pay that much for pitcher. But like you said, if I want to play, like say Minor and Strasburg, or you know what I mean, like then I could do stuff like that. So I do like San Diego.
Yeah, I definitely can get behind the thing. Flexing on a giant slate is probably just decent enough for me not to stack them up.
Okay.
His strikeouts are low. And he's going to give up probably a home run or 2 tonight. He doesn't walk a ton of guys. He gives up a lot of hits, but doesn't make me feel more full stacky. I'm more looking for bats. I love Tatis at low ownership, and for good reason he's low owned, because you've got some great shortstops, especially Trevor Story is going to be 30% owned. Play Tatis as a pivot. You know what I mean? Stack Colorado and use Tatis. I just think that's a great way to go. I also like Manny Machado a lot. And Trent Grisham, if you were going to fully stack it, the way you could get it cheap would be playing Brian O'Grady in the outfield at 2K flat.
He's only 2K?
Yeah, and Caratini's 2.5. So you could easily build a cheap San Diego stack here.
Yeah.
But I think I'm more leaning towards maybe a one-off of Grisham, maybe a 2-man or a 3-man with Tatis and Machado and Grisham or something like that, or Machado, Grisham, and maybe even Caratini or something like that. I don't love it. I mean, there's just better spots, I feel like, on the slate, but I do think this is a good spot. And I will point out that Seattle, I think, has the lowest run total projected on the slate. So Paddock is, no matter what people say about him today, no matter what, he'll be owned. I just want to say, like, a guy who never, I mean, he hasn't gotten there this season. Like, it's a whole year. It's a whole season that he hasn't gotten there. He struggled last season. He has 120 fantasy point outing where he pitched 5 innings. He's pitched 5 1/3 innings was his high on the season. So a guy at 8,600 like that.
I'm going to have 0 of him. I just have.
As of right now, only because I'm so iffy on the pitching. I have him on my list, but he's behind the other guys. Do you want to recap it, Sheets?
So for me, DraftKings, if my top pitcher, assuming he has full run, or I have to figure out what full run means. You know what I mean? I have to figure out what his pitch count's got to be for me to make him my top pitcher. I haven't figured that out yet. But for now, let's say that Strasburg is the most interesting to me. Then there's Bauer and Minor, and then underneath that I have the Anderson, Paddock, Nola, and Glasnow. As far as stacks go on DraftKings, my 2 favorites are Colorado and Milwaukee. And then I originally said the Mets, but they're getting downgraded. And then San Diego's next. And then the Mets get downgraded along with Washington, Minnesota, Arizona, and Philly. FanDuel, it's more of a war at pitching. Anderson, Nola are much cheaper over there. I might go with them. But then there's the other guys I mentioned. And then on FanDuel, Milwaukee and Colorado again, top 2. Then Minnesota, Washington, Philly next year. And final tier would be Oakland, Houston, and Atlanta.
I like it. Okay, my pitchers are right now Glasnow, Bauer, Marquez, Minor as my favorites. Mixing in, there's a bunch of other guys I'm thinking about mixing in. Hauser, Stroman, Hendricks, Paddock. They're just all, and even Lopez and I don't know where I'm going to end up with all that. For my hitters, I like, I mentioned I like a mini Philly stack. I like Colorado quite a bit. I like KC, and I have mini, like, again, it's a huge list to start off with, but I like the mini New York, Washington, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, and Texas. So it's a lot of them, but my favorites being Philly, Tampa Bay, mini, KC, Colorado would be my favorites.
All right. As they say, big ass.
I'm going to have one Yankees full stack tonight because that feels like a spot where that whole game might be a full stacking game that no one touches, and it could just go nuts. So I'm into that. All right. I think we're pretty good, right? I think do we cover anything else, Sheets, or are we done?
Big ass slate. Good luck.
We'll
see you later. And as usual, I might bail on Friday. I have to see where I'm at. But for now, I'm scheduling myself to come online.
Okay, we can even do a half-hour one if you want to at 6 Eastern or however you want to do it. It's always I want to keep the good luck going. If we can get Sheets, we'll even for half hour. It'd be great.
All right.
All right, guys. Good luck to everybody out there. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards tonight.
See you later.